Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for another video here on the channel. Now if there are many bone themed Skylanders, particularly of the Undead element specifically, I mean you got Chop Chop, Ghost Roaster, Fright Rider, Crypt King and even Funny Bone, which just so happens to be a nickname for an actual bone inside of a human body known as humorous, because humorous and funny in terms of literal definition are practically the same thing, making the name of the bone itself that much easier to remember thanks to this clever little nickname. Anyways, you can also count Hex on top of that. Whilst her main body itself doesn't consist of bones as she goes for a more humanoid type look, what you have instead is a very bone based moveset. She literally creates a wall of bones to keep enemies at bay while she launches her Skull Rain. From superchargers there is Fiesta and Bone Bash Roll Brawl, the clues in the name of that one. And to end things out, we of course have Chopscotch from Imaginators, making Swap Force the only Skylanders game to introduce no new characters who are undead themed, or bone themed even, with an undead element is what I meant to say. But what Swap Force did introduce, however, was the coolest version of Chop Chop, where he got twin blades for both his awesome figure and even his name as well. Of course, Trap Team also wanted its fair share of bone-themed characters. Once again, Bone is literally the name of Bone Chompy, making it very hard to miss. Wolfgang has a bone harp, just like in Imaginators, where it was repurposed into a bow, and it's still all bone-based, but oddly enough, our last bone-themed characters aren't even from the undead element. Voodoo wears the bones of an ancient dragon as a symbol for conquering his fears and entering a darkened cave per his backstory, and whenever Grave Clobber smashes the ground in Trap Team, bones erupt from the earth. And finally, Spyro's Adventure just couldn't help itself with this pun. Anyways, why do I bring up all these bones? Well, because, simply put, I managed to break a bone of mine. It was the left side of my clavicle. The x-ray you see before you is exactly how it would have looked, mind you. And you may have even already known a set amount of information surrounding this based on my previous posts, but today, however, I wanted to share with you the full story as to how I broke my clavicle. But not without an impressive chase variant showcased beforehand. That's right, I recently got my hands on this incredible golden Chop Chop. Fits in for the video at hand as we're talking about bones, and this guy not only has bones, but golden ones too, and they're plastered all over him as he's half Archie and half skeleton. Now unfortunately, whilst the chase variant does look awesome in real life, unfortunately that doesn't fully reflect in-game, as when I place him on the Traptanian portal, he only appears as the regular Chop Chop in the game, per it being a chase variant and all that. However, that ain't gonna stop me from using his gameplay as we jump into Trap Team and talk about the history of me breaking my own bones. Okay, we've now cut into the screen capture of all of my glorious Trap Team gameplay with my golden Chop Chop right now, and so I can ultimately talk about why this video is finally themed around bones. And so naturally I created a post recently looking into a injury I unfortunately suffered through, and it took me weeks to recover from my clavicle fracture. Now the saving grace of said clavicle fracture is that the x-ray did look awesome. You can see photos of how clavicle fractures look on x-rays before you. Of course mine wasn't an exact replica of that, but this gives you a general idea. So yes, x-rays look cool, but moving away from that, I do of course want to talk about how I got the fracture, but first of all I want to disclose the fact that I might have broken the left side of my clavicle. What I've also broken along my left arm is my humerus, just about the worst bone in your body to break, and that all occurred on a bouncy castle. So as for Chop Chop gameplay is of course carried out in front of you, I'm gonna give you the story of my first ever left arm break. So it was literally during a birthday of my aunt's, and she had hired a whole team of paramedics as well as a massive bouncy castle. Now the main reason why they were
paramedics and training around is mostly because they were friends of my aunt, since she works with the local hospital. She's an ambulance driver, I believe, or at least she's being promoted towards that lineup of work. And so naturally these work friends of her, these paramedics in training, when I actually broke my arm on a bouncy castle, and I did it trying to replicate a stunt that my uncle stupidly did and failing miserably, so I landed on my arm in a really unfunny way, shall we put it. It broke the left humerus, like I just said, and I am here screaming my head off. I am in agony. I don't actually remember the agony itself because this happened back when I must have been 5 or 6 years old, but I can't even put my coat on because, of course, when you break your arm, you don't want to move it. And so I might be screaming my head off, and my arm might be, I think it was bright pink or something along those lines. And here the paramedics in training are saying that I'm absolutely fine, I'm just being an attention seeker. But my mum, she's real concerned for me because I don't normally scream this way. I was very clearly in pain, you could see it on my face. So my mum, to be safe, wound up taking me to the hospital anyway. Several hours later, I had my x-ray taken, and it turns out the arm was broken. Yeah, some paramedics, they were completely unable to identify that my arm had been broken. And what's funny is that my uncle actually watched me trying to do the stunt on the bouncy castle. And when my mum got concerned as to why I was making so much fuss over my broken arm, my uncle basically replicated the same stunt I did, and then it hurt his arm. But of course, he didn't break it, he just hurt his arm. And then, my mum was trying to soothe me by saying, hey, look, now your uncle's gone and done it, because it was just something incredibly stupid that I did. But, of course, for a kid with a broken arm, that wasn't very soothing. Now, this was during the phase that I used to love playing with toy cars and toy trains and everything, but I had one arm completely plastered up in a cast, so I could only use my right arm. And so basically, crawling around on the floor and playing with toys with only one arm and no other arm to really support yourself as you play with said toys, it's not the easiest thing to do. So I struggled to play with my toys, but I was rebellious and did it anyway. Of course, I got a few weeks of school, so that was a saving grace. But yeah, that was how I managed to wind up in plastering it in a cast at the age of 6 years old, because I stupidly broke my left humerus on a bouncy castle, and now here I am, over 10 years later, having broken my left shoulder. My left arm in its entirety just can't seem to catch a break.
So right here we have my bike. If I was to get the closest comparing Skylander to it, I would say it would no doubt be Treadhead, considering he also rides a motorbike-like machine, should I say, and a push bike isn't too far off that. Who am I kidding? It's incredibly far off, but still, Treadhead, closest possible Skylander I can have to me riding a bike. And putting all of this Treadhead talk aside, you'll notice that this is currently closed up. Well, it's just going to require the use of a button back there to open all up, so I can be cycling on my bike, mind you, down towards Cineworld, where I'm going to be watching a film. So I'll show you half of that journey. After all, I can't show you the whole thing, otherwise you can backtrack back to where I live using that little montage. Regardless, I'll see you once said montage is over.
Made it here to Cineworld in pretty good time. You can tell I got my hi-vis on to make sure I'm nice and visible, because by the time I'm done for my film binge today it will be quite dark and I'm going to need the illumination right here. Regardless, I apologise for the previous montage. I had such a high camera angle, unfortunately there was nothing I can do about that, but hopefully you enjoyed the montage all the same. Without further ado, with only 10 minutes before my film starts, I should definitely get on up there and grab myself a drink, because I am tired out. The wind resistance coming here wasn't insane. Winter just really didn't like me today.
As you can tell, the films took up a few hours of my day, because as you can tell, despite how glorious the view from atop Cineworld is right now, it is awfully dark. So what I'm going to do here instead is wait until tomorrow so I can actually get some shots in good light for the location in which I broke my left clavicle, mind you. So yes, I'll see you tomorrow. So tomorrow is here. As you can see, I'm back at the top of Cineworld again, but I won't be staying here long because soon enough we are going to be walking down to explore the area in which I broke my left clavicle. So let's get to it. Along the journey to the location in which I broke my left clavicle, if CEX just so happens to be located, so we might as well, whilst we're here, go on inside and check out what they got. So here I am inside CEX, and I found some pretty rare finds in terms of their Toys to Life collection. It is mostly Amiibo and Disney Infinity oriented, but right at the front you can see we have Dr. Crankcase, who's got the same price as he was recommended retail brand new, so that's quite a surprise for a pre-owned Dr. Crankcase. But speaking of surprises, Egg Bomber Airstrike's little bird right here is in shockingly good shape. Normally you see those either broken away from a figurine entirely or really scratched up and bent, but this one looks spectacular. So the condition of this Egg Bomber Airstrike alone is surprising to me. But now here we are. At long last, here I am at the very road in which I unfortunately broke my left clavicle. So here's the story. This junction right here is not the utmost visible, and it's in a very weird position to where it looks as though you have the right of way and you can cycle straight onto the road. It's not like that at all, being that it's a junction you have to stop and allow for cars taking the corner even to bypass you. So naturally I'm cycling up, preparing to go straight, thinking that I have a right of way, but suddenly I see a car who's already gone round the turn, and I realise the give way sign, and so I now know I no longer have a right of way and I need to stop in order to make sure no cars are going to be speeding around that corner to hit me. Well, I wind up slamming my brakes on too eagerly in order to stop before the junction. I had ample time to stop, but due to just how hard I slammed on the brakes, I wind up tossing straight over my handlebars. I perform a proper front flip straight into the road head first. So I managed to crack open my head, requiring for stitches, and then my left collarbone even winds up landing funny and fractures in the process. Not a particularly pleasant story, but the story of how I broke that left clavicle all the same. Now, with that all being said and done, this video is coming to an end, but before that happens, I first want to thank all my Blazing Knights and Scorpion Dragons whose support allow me to continue pumping out quality videos like this one. Without them, this all wouldn't be possible. Therefore, I genuinely appreciate every last one of you from the bottom of my heart. If you enjoyed this video, I have others you can watch by clicking on screen now, and you can even subscribe by pressing the button on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one, but until that moment arises, peace!